Welcome to the rabbit hole here on the Tavern Report. That's twitch.tv forward slash the underscore report. This will be the permanent home on Twitch for the rabbit hole. And we're going to do a lot more than just the rabbit hole here on the Tavern Report. This is where we're going to have a lot of fun on Joe Slick Live in the mornings. There's a report over there. And that's generally to get you up to date what's happened in the last 12 to 24 hours. And we'll try to keep you abreast of what's going on around the planet and the sun and the solar system and everything else. And a little bit, what's happening in the mainstream media. Also, we're on Twitch, twitch.tv /Joe Slick Live. That's where you can find that. And we're over here on the report, the underscore report at twitch.tv /. And we're on Facebook, and we're on Rumble, and we're on YouTube. And this will be on the YouTube channel, the Joe Slick Live YouTube channel. The Tavern Report will have its own eventually, but we're doing a test. Make sure everything works out tonight. And going forward, we're going to do a lot of fun stuff here on the Tavern Report that we can't do over on Joe Slick Live. It's specific to what the topic is tonight, so that's why this works out for you. So tonight I have with me, I have my good friend Luke Klemmer and my other good friend Canuck, better known as New Brunswick, Canada guy. I know his real name, but I don't want to out him. But if he wants to say it, he can do that if he likes. Luke, don't give it 2 cents. We don't have any real sponsors yet, but GFYM might be one of them, and NFG might be the other, and we'll see how that all works out. So we'll let it go at that. And so tonight, specifically, this is October 16th, 2024. We're going to talk about the fault systems in this greater Santa Barbara area. We've talked about Los Angeles. We've talked about Orange County. We've talked about San Diego. We need to talk about northern Mexico. We're not there yet because we're not done right here in Santa Barbara. This is our third attempt at the conglomeration of faults that are so far out and so screwed up at there's a reason why all of that's happening, because this is the break in the plate from the Pacific Plate to the North American Plate, and the combination of the two, the crunching of the two, the grinding of the two happens right here. And that's why Santa Barbara is a topic tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And Canuck, do you want any opening words to
Yeah, we're just going to talk about the ones that are there and how they connect to the ones we've already talked about in the last 2 episodes.
Okay.
And then we're going to go through a few quakes just to see.
All right, so I have it on screen. So you want to talk about which one?
Well, zoom into where San Cayetano Fault is.
San Cayetano, okay.
Because there's actually 2 branches up, a north one and a south one. Okay. I already talked about the south one before because it runs into the Ventura Fault.
Okay, it's the south one. It goes this way. So the northern one goes to Santa Ana Fault, Lion Canyon, Arroyo Parida, and Hollister and Del Valle, and then Santa Susana over here. And Ridge, it's Oak Ridge right up here. So this fault we talked about right here, number 338. And then we talked about Peters Point. We talked about Oak Ridge. We talked a little bit about the Santa Ynez Fault. That's how you say Ynez.
Yeah.
So right now we're going to talk a little bit about right here, number 340.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is do the one that goes across the top first. So Santa Ana, and then the ones that go across to Santa Barbara that are all connected.
All right.
Talk about them first.
So you just tell me where you want me to go, and I'll put the map.
Just keep going left because it starts with Santa Ana is actually connected to the northern branch of the San Cayetano. Well, then the next section is the Arroyo Parida Fault.
Okay, I'm going toward the ocean, so you got to keep me with it.
Yeah. Then the Mission Ridge Fault. And going to the left, I'm not going to explain. I'm going to give all the names first.
Okay.
I'll explain it. And then it keeps going across. There's the Refugio Fault.
Yeah, Refugio right there. Okay.
Now, I'm not going to talk about Santa Ynez yet.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
But those ones there, from Refugio all the way over to the San Cayetano northern branch.
Right.
How they summarize it, it says it goes from Goleta there all the way to Ojai.
Okay.
When they talk about how all those faults are connected. And that section that goes all the way there from one side to the other, they've studied all those faults individually, but now they call it the Mission Ridge system.
Okay. That's good.
Mission Ridge was the first one that they did. And then they found the other ones and then connected them all together.
So that's kind of like a fault zone, kind of like what we were dealing with the Big Pine and all the other ones, or?
Yeah, it's the same idea.
Okay.
So those are like the individual faults of it. But when they refer to it when they're talking about the whole thing, they call it like the Mission Ridge Fault Zone or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. And as far as they know, there hasn't been any major quakes on that section.
Where at?
30,000 years.
Where's that?
That whole section from
all right,
Mission Ridge all the way across to where it connects to San Cayetano.
So when did they see it? That they noticed that there's a fault system here. What brought their attention?
The thing, but looking back at the things, it was like the 80s when they first started looking at it.
Okay. Did they say there was a date for the last earthquake along that stretch of stuff, or?
No, they just said it's been 30,000 years on that section from Mission Ridge over to Santa Ana. Now I'm going to give you what the Southern California thing, the information that they
the
have.
SCE. Okay.
Yeah. And they put it all under the Arroyo Parida fault system, but when you see it, it will tell you more what ones all connect. So
all right. Are you going to drop it in the chat there on?
Yeah, I got to do it.
Report? All right. Your puppies aren't loud, man. They're just having a good time there, Luke.
Yeah, they're getting a little rambunctious, so I had to kind of settle them down a little bit.
It's all right. That's doggies. Puppies, you know.
See if she's going to copy. No, it didn't do it. Go back again.
Cookie.
Didn't make me copying their stuff, I guess. Control C.
It's quite funny that nobody from JSL came over except for Eden.
Yeah, I even told everybody over on JSL to come on over.
Share this tab instead. Arroyo Parida Fault. I think I've heard of it. About 70 kilometers nearby communities, Santa Barbara and Goleta. Goleta is a little small village, I think.
Yeah, it's way over on the other side of the Mission Ridge.
Right. The slip rate's about 0.37 millimeters, not a whole lot. Interval between major eruptions, about 8,000 years. Probable magnitudes between 6.5 and 7.3. Seems like everything is like right around there. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Everything we run across. It's like, man.
Yeah, because it's long enough when they're all connected together, right? That it can make
Right. The Mission Ridge, Arroyo Parada, and the Santa Ana Faults make up an essential continuous fault system running west to east from Goleta to Ojai on the southern flank of the Santa Ynez Mountains. It is most likely ruptured in the Holocene times. I don't know how long ago that was. I had to figure that freaking frack out. Holocene, the most recent geologic area from about 10,000 years ago to present. Okay. That's good. Through the youngest dated surface rupture is roughly 30,000 years old. Prior to that, the fault ruptured about 38,000 years before present. So it sounds like the last that 8,000 year thing, that was pretty insane because it stopped it. Between these two ruptured times, there's about 3 meters of offset between the last measured rupture and the present. There has been 11 meters of offset. Oh, okay. Since the last eruption. So there was 3 meters for the 8,000 year from 8 to 30. Yeah, 30,000 to 38,000. Now there's 11 meters. So it's moved substantially more than it did that last rupture. So an average time between quakes is about 8,000 years with an average slip of about 3 meters per major quake. Seems quite possible. All right. All right.
So that's that one. It goes all the way across from San Cayetano northern section.
All right.
Now,
so from the orange right there all the way out to Goleta, which is just east of Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
That has ripped, but it moves only 0.37. So, millimeters. That's pretty slow.
Yeah.
That could be because what kind of fault is it? Did it say?
Yeah, they're all left lateral
strike slips.
Reverse thrust.
Reverse thrust.
Yeah.
So does that mean it's going under or does it mean it's going over? It's going sideways, but is the front part rising up over the back part?
I would say because it's the southern edge of the Santa Ynez Mountains. It's
a reverse lateral thrust, right?
Yeah.
All right, let me see what that means.
Because all of these are the same, right? The east-west ones are all the same type.
I'm always trying to figure out what the hell it means. Share this instead. All right. Fault plane. Diagram shows relative movement of blocks across a normal thrust, reverse, and strike slip. These sense movements in the strike slip fault illustrated is described as the lateral. If the movement had been in the other direction, is called a right lateral. Okay. All right. So the first one is a normal thrust. That means the hanging wall falls and the footwall rises up versus normal. That's a normal fault. The thrust fault's this one where the footwall dives down and the hanging wall rises up. See, trying to visualize when we're looking at the fault. Okay, which side of the Pacific Plate is riding over the other side of the Pacific Plate or the North American Plate? That's kind of where, when we talk about these, I want to be able to explain these to people so it isn't just like, oh yeah, it's a thrust fault. All right, what does that mean? Because it's not real clear to me The sense of movement is strike slip fault illustrated describes. So that's a side-by-side movement. But it appears that the A is the normal fault, B is the thrust reverse, and C is the strike slip or wrench. So the sense of movement in the strike slip fault illustrated is described as left lateral. So the movement had been in the other direction as a right lateral. So the left lateral comes toward us on the strike slip on the left side. So it comes toward us on the fault plane. On the reverse thrust, the hanging wall rises up over the footwall. And see, that's still, boy, it's hard to conceptualize. Let me go back to here and see if I can find something here. All right, there's a picture here. Share this instead. Oh, come on. Open enough.
Well, making the mountains so that it's
right. That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. Reverse fault is B. This is the one off to the right. We have the mountain range is the hanging wall. The footwall is what's driving it, and it's sliding. So thrust fault, compression, because it is compression. So thrust faults are all due to compression, and that's what's happening that we're talking about.
And you can have them like at the foot of the mountains on one side in the middle,
right,
and then the above the high side or the other side too. So you can have like three.
Yeah, and they can be hidden too or obscured. I forget what that's called, but
blind. They call it
blind. Yeah, blind thrust, where there's no, it hasn't broke the surface, but it's happening down in the belly of the earth.
The mantle.
Yeah, well, yeah, the belly
in the
of
crust.
the
Like
crust.
you just
Yeah, the
can't
crust, yeah.
broken surface where you can see it, identify it.
Right. So, what's interesting is the part that's rising up in a normal fault is tensional. It didn't sound too good.
Puppy's jealous.
The footwall rises up. You can see right up in here. In a normal fault, tensional, the footwall's rising up and the hanging wall's dropping down out to sea. It's spreading. So if it's a spreading, then the hanging wall drops. If it's compressional, the hanging wall rises. I don't know if that's in every case. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Reverse compressional, normal is tensional. So that might be the opposites. That's kind of where I'm trying to get it in my brain. What does that mean? You know, and I think, so many times that we just overlook these, hold on, share this tab instead. There you go. Now you can see it out there in the world. Looking at these things, on the left side, number A, that's the normal fault. There's a spreading, so it's tensional. And then there's compressional, which is reverse fault, and the hanging wall rises. Whereas on the other one, where it's spreading apart, the hanging wall drops. So I can see the difference of there. So if it's in in Nevada, it's where the basin and range, there's a lot of this normal faulting where they're just spreading apart. I don't know if there's reverse faults out in Nevada in that basin and range, but compressional, which is that component we're talking about from Santa Barbara down to basically 29, not 29 Palms, but Palm Springs. that whole region is all compressional. And that's what we have, these kind of funky where they're two smashing into each other versus, and they're also sliding by each other because the big giant Pacific plate sliding by North America, as it's hitting it, it's being compressed and it's sliding over it. So that's kind of what's going on here. And that's where this thrust fault compressional. So we have the hanging wall, the foot wall diving down underneath the hanging wall. Yeah, it's still diving down because it's compressional. Yeah, makes sense. And then just strike slip is sliding side by side, clean. So, all right.
So as far as they know, there hasn't been any recent major quakes on that whole section. Now, I want to do the next one below it, which is the Red Mountain Fault, and it's connected to the Mason Rincon Creek Fault. And that's what it's just slightly offshore from.
All right, bear with me. I'm shutting all these other ones down, and we'll keep that open just in case. So, you want to talk about the Lions Canyon or Red Mountain? Red Mountain, right there, right?
Yeah, Red Mountain. It's
Red Mountain turns into Mesa Rincon Creek Fault.
Yeah. Now, there's not too much information on that one when I tried to look it up, but they think that the 1925 Santa Barbara quake could have been on the Mesa Rincon section because it was right close to Santa Barbara.
Okay.
So
yeah, I can see that it does go offshore here.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So we're going to talk about that quake because they have so much on it. So I'm just going to
go ahead
for that.
All right, that's super. So basically what we're talking about, these faults, as he's looking up that and trying to share it over there in chat, and we'll change the screen for you. We're showing you where these fault systems are, and then we're showing examples of what has happened and when the last fault was and what kind of fault is. Now, this again is a compressional fault. Am I correct in that, Mason Rincon? It's not a strike slip. It's a compressional. It's east to west. You see that? East to west or west to east, however you want to look at it.
Well, to me, it's pretty amazing how they all intertwine together,
Right.
Partially. Some of them will come into other ones, and then there'll be an offshoot off of it later.
Branch or
which is when you read the fault reports on them, it makes sense, right? Because it's when it happens on one, it's vibrating to all the other ones that it's connected to. So then it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's another reason to bring up the felt reports, because you say, well, if these people felt it here, why are they feeling it? Is it just the surface, or is it a fault that is tied into it? Like like Ridgecrest took 10 seconds to hit me, and when Ridgecrest went off, but in some other people, they felt it like almost immediately. I watched the sucker roll in, and I was yelling in the next, to the next room, "Hey, hold on, here it comes!" Full 10 seconds. I was telling people on, next door, and they're saying, "What? Get out of the house! Go take shelter."
Watch it prop. It would go out through all these faults through Santa Barbara, as we can see on the thing, and it would go out to where Hosgary is, and then it would go up to San Fran. People thought it was going up to San Andreas, but it was actually going across and then up the outside and going up where Hosgary, San Gregorino is.
Right, which we're going to talk about not tonight.
No, we'll get to that later.
Yes, sir.
So it's cool how it did it. So we're going to read about
the Santa Barbara. Here we go. All right, buddy. All right. 1925 Santa Barbara earthquake hit the area of Santa Barbara, California on June 29 with a moment magnitude between 6.5 and 6.8 and the maximum mercantile intensity of a 9, which is violent. It resulted in 13 deaths and destroyed a historical center of the city. It was a damage estimate of $8 million back then, but in around 2017 monies is $111 million. Now it's probably 300 million in current dollars. The earthquake had no foreshocks were reported, felt before the main shock. The pressure gauge recording the card at the local waterworks showed disturbing beginnings at about 3:27 a.m., which were likely caused by foreshocks. At 6:44 a.m., the main shock occurred, which lasted 19 seconds. That's a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
Most earthquakes, dudes, I'm telling you, they don't last 19 seconds. Now, the surface waves, I don't know if he's talking about the surface waves or the P wave on this. If it's a P wave that lasts 19 seconds, that's insane. So, I mean, once it starts, it doesn't stop. You can feel it on when an earthquake happens, and you'll feel like a little subsidence, and then it's like, oh, now it's really moving. And that happens a lot with some of these, but wow, 19 seconds is a long time. The epicenter on the earthquake was located in the sea in a sea off the coast of Santa Barbara and is in the channel. The fault on which it occurred appears to have been extension of the Mesa Fault or the Santa Ynez system. The earthquake was felt in Paso Robles, San Luis Obispo County in the north, and to Santa Ana, Orange County, to the south, and to Mojave and Kern County. Yeah, to the east. So the whole Southern California felt this sucker. Major damage occurred in the city of Santa Barbara along the coast as well as north at Santa Ynez Mountains, including Santa Ynez and Santa Maria valleys. Though 13 people died, it may have been for worse without the actions of 3 heroes, which shut off the town gas and electricity, preventing a catastrophic fire. Most homes survived the earthquake in relatively good condition, although nearly every chimney in the city crumbled. The downtown Santa Barbara was destroyed. Only a few buildings along State Street, the main commercial street, remained standing after the earthquake. The city cab building and the California and Arlington garages, all large, fully occupied parking structures, collapsed, full with cars. Many of the other vehicles were crushed in the downtown area. At least one death resulted when the driver near the San Marcos building was crushed as walls of the building fell onto the cars. Wow. In the business district, the area of about 36 blocks, only few structures were not substantially damaged. Many had to be completely demolished and rebuilt. The facade of the Church of Mission Santa Barbara was severely damaged and lost its statues. Many imported buildings, including hotels, offices, and important buildings, Potter Theater, were lost. The courthouse, jail, library, schools, and churches were among the buildings sustaining serious damages. Concrete curbs buckled in almost every block of Santa Barbara pavement. On the boulevard along the beach was displaced about 20 to 36 centimeters, about a half a foot to a foot and a quarter. And the pavement of the downtown generally was not damaged. The Earth and Sheffield Dam had been built near the 1917. It was 720 feet long and 25 feet and held 30 million U.S. gallons of water. The soil under the dam liquefied during the earthquake and the dam collapsed. This was the only dam to fail during the earthquake in the U.S. until the Lower Van Norman Dam failed in 1971. When the burst of the wall of water swept through the Voluntario and Aliso streets, destroying trees, cars, 3 houses, and flooding the lower parts of the town into a depth of 2 feet. The Southern Pacific Company railroad tracks were damaged in several places between Ventura and Giovanna, and in the particular portion between Naples and Santa Barbara was badly damaged and displaced. Seaside bluffs fell into the ocean. A slight tsunami was noted offshore ships. The town was completely cut off from telephone and telegraph. and news from outside the world arrived in a shortwave radio. Absence of post-earthquake fire permitted scientists to study earthquake damage to various types of constructions. The American Legion and Naval Reserves and the Naval Reserve Center, Santa Barbara, helped provide order amidst the chaos and manned posts and provided patrols throughout the town and to inhibit looting and damaged businesses and homes. Additionally, fire and police personnel arrived from as far away as Los Angeles to assist the sailors and the soldiers in maintaining order. And there were a couple of aftershocks. 3 aftershocks occurred in the next few hours, though none caused any additional damage. So they think 8:08, 10:45, and 10:57, and many smaller shocks continued throughout the day. The only aftershock on July 3rd caused additional cracked walls and damaged chimneys. Wow, pretty insane. Now, we can go to the list of 1925.
Yep, that's what we'll do. See where it came.
All right, so when was it? What the date was it?
This was June 29.
Yeah, all right, so right in the middle. All right.
So we can go back 6 months and then.
Yeah. So we'll just start with January.
Yeah.
Okay, what we're looking for here is a pattern to see if there's a pattern that persists. And let me see and make sure that I got that one on. Yeah, I do. So looks like in January, Peru had a 6.5. Kuril Islands had a couple of big ones. Yeah, and continued into February. So a 7.2 and a 6.8 and a 6.5, 6.5, 6.8. Oh my God. 6.9. And then Southern Alaska had a 6.6. And that's February. March, Canada, Quebec had a 6.3. Quebec's not on the West Coast. It's on the East Coast. Am I right?
Yep.
All right.
St. Lawrence, I think.
St. Lawrence, Quebec. All right. Well, that's kind of interesting right there.
Yeah.
New Hebrides. I don't remember where that is. I think that's PNG.
Yeah.
Panama had a 6.4.
Yeah.
April. Southern Indian Ocean had a 7.1. Halmahera, nothing. We're into May now. East Indies again. Philippines, East Indies. Oh my God. Japan 6.6. Japan 6.5. So really nothing.
Yeah, the opposite side of the plate's going. Really
right, and that tends to be the case. That western side of the Pacific Plate just is really, 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 really busy. Even today, we catch an occasional Central America and South America, but it's nothing like the other side. But so in June, Molucca Sea still doing. Off the coast of Northern Cal had a 6.
Yep.
All right. I don't know where that is. I want to know where that is.
Well, you'd have to dig further. You'd have to go.
Columbia had a 6.3.
June 4th, 1925, Northern California quake.
Yeah.
More. I assume Eureka or Petrolia or.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'd say. Northern Cal, yeah. Colombia had a 6.3. Ecuador had a 6.8. So that northern portion of South America was banging hard.
Yeah.
Cayenne, Fairy Lake, Montana, 6.9.
Yeah, so that was the day before.
Wow.
So that's pretty.
That's a crazy quake. Crazy big for that area.
So you're looking at just the U.S., we've got the Quebec one, or the North America. We've got the Quebec one. And then we have the Montana quake, and then Santa Barbara Channel.
Yeah, and Alaska, whatever it was, 6.6.
I don't know. I don't have any idea where that quake could be. What was the name of it? Canyon Fairy Lake.
Yeah, I imagine it's along the. I think when I looked it up,
Montana, with the epicenter being located near the Townsend.
I think it's like the Great Falls tectonic zone limit, I think.
Yeah, near Townsend. I don't know where that is. Is a violent, serious damage reported. As I look at it here, hold on here. Okay, we're sharing it. Good. So it is on the side of where the park is, but just north of it.
Yeah.
Epicenter located along Townsend, earthquake magnitude 6.9, surface wave magnitude scale, blah, 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 blah. 3 hours after the serious damage reported near this epicenter, 3 hours after the shock, a strong aftershock occurred with an unknown magnitude. All right. That's wild.
So basically, it was coming from like all directions.
Right. Yeah.
Santa Barbara.
The epicenter, Clarkson Valley, the valley and mountains severely folded, Mesozoic and older rocks floored with tertiary lake beds and recent alluvium. Physiographic evidence indicate that the Clarkson Valley is a structural depression on the east by a fault of post-Miocene age. Presumably, the origin of the earthquake was on the fault at the considerable depth between the surface. Okay. In the neighborhood of Deer Lodge, several faults, apparently small extent and trend northwestward, are mapped by the geologic of Anaconda copper mining. Well, that's kind of interesting. So northwestward, not eastward. Well, that's okay. So we need to find those maps from this quake, because that would suggest that Quebec wasn't necessarily. I mean, how big was the Quebec quake?
6.3, I think it said.
Okay, well, this is a 6.9.
Yeah.
And the trend of northwest to southeast, that's the trend of that fault system. That means it's coming out of the Colorado lineament. Am I incorrect? Through, not maybe BC, but Alberta, which is next to BC, right? Coming out of those mountains down the south. What's the main fault system? I'm trying to look it up right now. Freaking frack, man.
The mountains are all there going northwest to southeast. That's what it says in the article.
God bless America. It's freaking not working for me.
You'll see why it's doing that when we look at 1924.
Okay. We're gonna get there. Yeah. I didn't know about this 1925 earthquake. Wasn't there one in like some lake that's not too far from there? And it was in the 50s, 1950s?
Yeah, that was the
Hebgen Lake or something?
Hebgen Lake in 59.
Yeah, that's only 24 years later.
Yeah.
So 2 pretty damn massive quakes. Wow, 25 years apart. Okay. Yeah, let's go back and let's look at 1924 now.
Yeah.
Because we have 6 months to look at that. So let's start in June.
Yeah.
All right. Looking in June. Columbia 6.5. There's the damn Curl again. 7.2. Columbia again 6.4. Ecuador 6.5. Then going into August, Japan went off the hook. Wow.
Lots of sixes on there, mid sixes, huh?
Wow. 7 and a bunch of 6s. All in Honshu and Kyushu. Honshu is the main island, and then Kyushu is the southern island. They don't think that was the Nankai Trough?
No.
Wow, because it rocked. Oh my
The
God.
last time Nankai Trough went off, the last 2 times were 1946 and 1944.
Yeah, but this thing here, Honshu, oh my land, a 7, 6.3, 6.2, 6.6, 6.4, 6.0. And a 6.5. It started at a 6.5.
Yeah.
And then in Kyushu is the 6.0. So it spread out. It went south, I guess. And the Philippines right after had a 7.1. So that pressure went south. I don't know if it went north. We'll have to find out.
Well, it did.
Rat Islands do a 6.6.
Curls were acting up. In
Honshu another 6.6. God. Man, I don't want to ever go to Japan. Too many quakes, man. Colombia in October had a 6.6. The Commander Islands in Russia again 6.6. So I don't know, man. Hokkaido, finally, it took 2 months, 3 months. In November, Hokkaido went through a 6.7. So in August, all through the month, God, it started on the 6th, it ended on the 28th. And then it had it on the next month. It had on the 18th, it had another 6.6 on Honshu. And then it went to Hokkaido North on the 25th of November. December, Argentina with a 6.3. That's not a lot. But you got the curls. Man, 7 and a 7. So on the eastern side, or on the western side,
yeah. Now we have to do January through May too, because it'll make even more sense.
Okay, so in this same year?
Yeah, in the same year. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I started a little bit later then. All right, so January. Honshu popped in, fucking Honshu, on the 14th. Russia, Sivokusk, 6.8. Guam, okay, that's U.S. Chile, a 6.7, so down in South America. So nothing in February and March. Ecuador popped with a 6.9. Costa Rica 7.1, 6.4 Costa Rica. Peru 6.6. So we have Central America banging really hard.
Yeah.
And then Peru, which is coming down the pipe. And then we start Russia again. And then Mexico, Mutual Con had a 6.4. So, okay. El Salvador, the next month in May, had a 6.6. Freaking Russia, Sivokusk, another 7. And El Salvador had a 6.6. So 6.4, 6.6, and Central America. Call it.
So you're getting within like pretty close to the year or so, all the same usual suspects going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the main suspects in all the California quakes so far, I didn't see anything on the Atlantic Ridge. They may have not had any instruments out there.
No, not too much then.
You're right. This is 1924.
Records go back to 1900, but at that point, they had to be close enough to Iceland for it to pick it up for the.
Right. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Right. So what we're seeing is Japan just bangs off hard. Just tough. We see a lot of Peruvian quakes. We see Central American quakes. We see some Ecuador quakes as well. not so many Chilean quakes, are we?
No, it was more like Colombia, Ecuador,
Yeah,
and
in Peru.
Central America.
Yeah.
So only the one bigger one in Mexico. So it kind of jumped from Central America right into California. And then you had the northern component coming from Quebec, Montana, Alaska. So it's a similar pattern to the other ones.
Right. That's kind of what I'm just kind of digesting it, thinking. All right, so we're seeing patterns like last week we talked a little bit about what's happening there in the Santa Barbara Channel, and we saw a lot of activity along the Caribbean Plate or the Caribbean Plate, and now we're seeing a lot of activity in Central America and also Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia. And we're seeing massive movements in Japan, massive. A little bit in Alaska, not so much. But we do see several in a central part of the United States happening again.
Yeah.
So that supposition that you have, Canuck, that pressure moving across the plate from east to west generally kicks California off.
Yeah, and it's like it needs three components. It needs a little bit coming from the north, a little bit from the east, and a whole bunch coming from the south.
I'm not sure, Eden. That's an interesting question. Is South America plate thicker than the North American plate? I would say because of the Andes, if that's the area you're speaking of, I would say that's substantially thicker because those mountains are way up.
It depends on where you are in it because the crust changes. There's a world crustal thickness map, but what I usually do, I like take a place name and search how deep the crust is there, rather than it's
right. I know on the eastern side of South America, it's really shallow. It's very thin. Yeah. The western side, where the Andes are, is astronomically thick. As high as you go above land, it's kind of like an iceberg. It goes down. Yeah. And that's why I think Garlock and the whole movement of everything that's happening here in North America is stuck around Mount Whitney.
Which is important to know that the crustal thickness, because when you get the depth of the quake, you know if it's still in the crust or if it's in the subducting plate. That's important, right? So you have to know where one is in relation to the other.
Right. And in knowing the direction of the faults, I think is important too, the kind of faults. Again, we're not forecasting anything. What we're doing is we're seeing similarities. And this is not something that's brand new.
Well, we're trying to see if we can establish a pattern too.
Right. And in the last article of the woman who runs the USGS, she point blank said there's no evidence of anything regarding earthquakes, that there is a historical connection that is scientifically proven where if it happens, then that's going to happen. So we always have to say, okay, this is a place of interest. Let's keep our eyes open. Let's be aware. Not that there's a for sure thing going to happen. And that's the problem with people forecasting. You know, I always said, oh, I'd like to do that. But you know what? I really don't want that responsibility. You know, because if it doesn't happen, then you look like a fool. But if it does happen, you look like a prognosticator of doom. You know? And it's not something that I enjoy. I mean, I'd rather, you know, make people aware of where they live and that there's a plausibility. And if they can, you know, if you can articulate in a way like I want to articulate in a way that is not as an alarmist, but as one that would present the information and say, hey, look, we're not saying it's going to happen right now or in the immediate future or within weeks. I said, I'm going to be watching it over the next week because there is a likelihood or is a possibility that it happens because of this history. Bang, 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 right? And that area is a place of interest. So do yourself a favor, don't panic, but, prepare for something. And because most people don't prepare, like I was showing earlier today, which I know a lot of people didn't watch, and they saw it as probably, in my estimation, as somebody off their rocker. However, most of those words, I'm not sure if Canuck listened to them all, but most of those words have come true.
I missed half of the other one because the last one you played because
yeah. Both of the gentlemen are my I wouldn't say they're my peers, but they're my mentors. And I followed them and prayed for them, and actually one I've spoken to a couple of times, and the other one only one time. But needless to say, I've watched what they've said happen with uncanny occurrences in great detail. Now, most of the things today were kind of obscured, but that's how they were presented. And you can read into them and say, well, okay, they're not Nostradamus, because Nostradamus' stuff, it's like, what? How do you get that? Because again, maybe he was gifted, but he was also contorted. So what was coming out came through him. And every word is subjected to the prophet. So you can hear wrong. Believe me, you can hear wrong. I've done it. And it's a scary thing to be presumptuous. So always never presume that you are absolutely spot on. That, you can look at Job. You can look at, what the occurrence of Nineveh. That prophet didn't want to go do anything. And he's like, I'm not doing anything. And he got swallowed by a fish. Then he got spit up on shore and he had to walk to those people and say, I'm sorry, because he bleached out by the stomach acid of the whale or the fish. And so they looked at him and went, oh, can you imagine this dude? Oh, bright white and, yeah, turned yellow or whatever.
It looked like some goth person.
Right. Totally. And, he had to be obedient. And then the whole town actually repented. But, and he didn't want that because he wanted them. He got involved. He got in the middle. You can't be in the middle. You can't stop what the word is being said. So he had to learn. But again, these other guys, they've said some things, and some things have yet to happen, but they're kind of signposts for me. And I've talked to a lot with Canuck on several of these things, and he knows where I'm coming from in a lot of this. But I still don't try to push that. And I just say a little birdie told me, a little birdie. And, things that the Indonesian quake, I was told before it was going to happen personally. I didn't know. I've never seen those kind of buildings before. I didn't know where to look. I said, there's these buildings and they're like in the jungle. I didn't know what I no experience in the world view. And when they happen to go, oh my God. But, near 300,000 people lost their lives. So, I feel kind of bad because I didn't pray for them. So I go, okay, God, next time you talk to me, I'm going to pray, So I learned. And maybe he will, maybe he won't, but I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole rabbit hole right there, boy.
That's another 2-hour episode.
Yep.
So now what we're going to do is go back to the big map again.
All right, big mapper.
Yeah.
Okay, we're here.
Okay, now we're going to do the next one up, which is the Santa Ynez Fault.
Santa Ynez?
Yeah.
All right. We talked a little briefly about the Santa Ynez. Santa Ynez in the east has a splay off in the Pine Mountain Fault, but we're not talking about that yet.
No,
It breaks 3 sectors: the Los Alamos baseline, the Santa Ynez River, and the Santa Ynez Southern Branch, which also splays off to the Pacific, a Pacifico Fault. So then there's a refugo, but that's part of the Mission Ridge system that leads into the very bottom of it, because that's all along the coastal mountain ranges right there.
Yeah.
So what would you like to talk around?
Well, I'll just mention we're going to primarily focus on Santa Ynez and the baseline Los Alamos Fault.
Right here in the middle.
These other ones, the Santa Ynez River one is the bottom of the Santa Maria Basin. And,
okay.
Yeah, the baseline at Los Alamos and Casmelia or Malia.
Casmelia, yeah. Casmelia, yeah.
Lions Head, those are the ones that go up the center of the basin. And then the upper part of the Santa Maria Basin is Little Pine, Sin, and Santa Maria Fault, and all those other ones.
Oh, big Vanuatu right now. Vanuatu.
Going big.
There's a big one right now. Probably 6-ish.
Oh.
I was going to say mid 5 to 6 somewhere.
Yeah.
Share this tab instead. You can see it now on your line.
Yeah, it's
got some pretty dark red in it in the beginning.
Yeah.
I would kind of lean toward more of a 6 than
a 5. We'll see if Vanuatu picks up with Port Moresby or Darwin or Fiji even, because I think those are the closest ones on this. Continue. So we're talking about the Santa. What'd you say on the? What's the valley called?
Santa Maria Basin.
Santa Maria Basin. Okay, I want to have a picture so we can actually take a look at that in a way to because it has a component where it begins back here and moves to the north. Okay, there is a group of mountains here, and then these are the larger Sierra Madre Mountains in the background. But I'm looking to show you a little more because in this map it doesn't show you too much because the basin. Oh, God bless America! It's the mouse needs to be updated. Microsoft doesn't update it screws me up. Oh my God.
I have a map here that shows the whole thing, and it shows where Vanderburg is and all that. You want me to put that?
Sure. I've got maps, but I wanted a picture to kind of a relief picture, so somebody can take a look at it and say, "Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense."
Because Vanderburg is basically the middle of the Santa Maria.
Yeah, the Vandenberg they have is like the coast. There's a little beach, and then it goes up, a couple hundred feet, and then it's relatively flat, and then the mountains again occur, if I remember correctly.
Copy this.
Let me see if
like it's all colorized. You can see like the elevations and stuff.
Okay, cool. Share this one instead. Here you can see the valley is all this right here. You can see there is a range here and a range here, but this is the main valley that he's talking about right through here. And we'll look at this one. Yeah, I was looking at this one too. So go ahead and share this tab instead. So Casamalia Hills up here, Parisma Hills here, and then the San Ynez River Basin is at the southern half of it. Am I correct? Vandenberg Terrace is here. Again, a terrace is an uplift. Then the Santa Maria Basin continues. So it's all the lower coastal areas. There is the Santa Maria mountain range kind of goes right through the middle of San Rafael Mountains in the past. Parisma Hills and Casamia Hills, all north of Ojai, by the way.
Yeah.
And so the topography is kind of tricky. And we're seeing it, share this tab. We're seeing all this white area right there. All this white area is relatively flat. There's a little mountain range here. That's the Parisma Hills. And where Los Alamos comes through right there. And Parisma is down here along where Lion's Head Fault is. And then down is the river, Santa Ynez River is through here. And then, down further where Lompoc is. So what do you want to talk about, buddy?
Now we're going to talk about two or three of the quakes that have happened in that area. But
okay.
I have an article that I'm going to put in here next that talks about all the quakes going back into the 1800s that have been felt in the Santa Barbara area, and it lists them all with dates and names. Like, we're not going to do all of them. Some we've already done already, but there's other ones that a couple we're going to look up and see how.
Yeah, that article you posted was a late Pleistocene rates of rock uplift faulting and boundary between the Southern Coast Ranges and the Western Traverse Ranges in California, reconstruction, luminescence dating, and of the Orcutt Formation. That's kind of far out, man. Yeah, that thing's like, what?
Put this one in. That's good.
All right.
It's an older one. It's from 2001, but it
don't care.
All the older stuff. So I like it.
All
so
right.
From the University of California at Santa Barbara.
Catalog of Santa Barbara earthquakes, 1800 to 1960.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. And you want me to read the principal earthquakes, the three of them? Or
do the middle part where it talks about the principal ones, but it gives more when it goes down farther.
Right.
That's
all
what
right. The Santa Barbara area has been affected by three major earthquakes and several lesser ones during the time covered by the catalog: 1812, 1925, and 1927. Now we talked about the 1925 and the 27. We haven't talked about the 1812 yet. The earthquake of 1812 is regarded as one of the largest earthquakes in California history, based evidently on the size of the felt area, the extensive destruction of missions in Santa Barbara County, and report of seismic sea waves. Assigned magnitude of this earthquake is a 7, according to Everden and Thompson in 1985. The data for this earthquake are meager, unfortunately, and permissive arguments can be presented in which not only raise doubts about the existence of any seismic waves, but also downgrade the possible magnitude of the scope of the earthquake. Yeah, right. Two different people arguing, a 65 paper and a 78 paper. The Great Fort Tejon earthquake of 1857, it was a magnitude 8, which accompanied the rupture of the San Andreas distance of about 300 kilometers from Parkfield to Cajon Pass, was sensibly felt in Santa Barbara, but did not cause significant damage, according to fairly extensive and detailed press reports. The effects were considerably stronger in the Santa Clara River Valley and were described in detail in the Santa Barbara newspapers. The earthquake of June 29 in 1925 and M6.3 was Santa Barbara's most destructive earthquake in the terms of loss of life and property. Indeed, the property damage was so extensive that much of the downtown part of the city had to be rebuilt. The architectural plan adopted the city only weeks after the earthquake, resulting from an attractive Spanish style that characterized the city today. Thus, the earthquake forced one of the first urban renewal projects in California. More significantly, the Santa Barbara earthquake exposed inadequacies of the contemporary buildings designed and constructed, prompting much discussion and little remedial legislation about statewide until the general lessons learned were confirmed by 1933 Long Beach earthquake. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they got moving when
Or in 33. The heavy damage to public schools in Long Beach, coupled by the realization of enormous loss of life that might have occurred if the earthquake had taken only an hour before, led the formation of enactment of the Field Act in 1993 by the state legislature. 1993, from 33, 60 years. Wow. That act gave jurisdiction to the State Division Architecture to regulate the design and construction of public school facilities. Significant expansion of the codes cover other kinds of public buildings, such as hospitals, fires, police stations, and did not happen until 1971 earthquake for San Fernando. Now, my first one. The 1927 Point Arguello earthquake in Byerly, 1930, Miss and M's and magnitude 7, 3 times the power, whatever. Sadek and Somerville, 1992 article generated only the truly documented seismic sea waves by the local earthquake. The epicenter was about 45 kilometers due west of Point Concepcion. And
yeah, that one is the 1927 Lompoc one that we talked about.
Yeah, Point Arguello earthquake, yeah. The earthquake damaged nearby coastal cities of Lompoc and Santa Maria. Santa Maria is substantially north. Other noteworthy earthquakes that strongly affected Santa Barbara in the vicinity of include Los Alamos earthquake of 1902, 1915.
Yeah, we're going to talk about those two.
Okay. The Santa Barbara earthquake of 1941. The strong intensity in both the 1902 and 1915 earthquakes were clearly centered in Los Alamos area, and their location, together with numerous reports of small earthquakes before and since that time in the area, indicate that the central part of the Santa Maria Basin is a zone of active faulting at depth. According to an article, the earthquake of 1941 5.9 was centered in the Santa Barbara Channel about 10 kilometers south of the city of Santa Barbara and caused much window breakage and cracking in the walls of downtown part of the city, where damage was so extensive in 1925. That's less than 20 years later, right?
Yeah. Reports
of the earthquake emanate from Ojai during the period of the catalog, as well as from Ventura and nearby areas. The vicinity reports reflect activity offshore Port Mugu. The judgment is based on the similarity of felt reports and numerous earthquakes believed to have been generated in the area, with felt reports from the 1973 Port Mugu earthquake, a 5.3. So this is a pretty extensive supposition of bringing all these articles together and to try to let you know that the area is, hey, you can get banged. Location map. All right.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is go back and talk about the 1902 Los Alamos ones.
All right.
So I have an article for that one too.
All righty.
It's pretty short, so it's not too bad.
Well, basically, you have Los Angeles County, Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, then San Luis Obispo County. And the San Andreas touches all the extents of all of those. Yeah. So you have it in there. I'll go ahead and bang it. There you go. Okay. I don't
Pretty
know.
short. It just gives a little bit of detail about them.
Okay, go ahead. Share this tab. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got to bring it back up on my screen.
All right. I can't read it because of their diagram here. It's old page. I'll tell you, it's old.
Yeah. The title is the 1902 Los Alamos earthquakes, effects in Los Alamos. The earthquakes began on Sunday night, July 27, 1902, around 11 p.m. when a strong shock awakened the residents of Los Alamos. Within 20 minutes, 4 more earthquakes were felt, followed by others at 12:55, 2:40, 3:10, 5:20, 7:40, 8:20, and 11 a.m. on the 28th. This series of earthquakes broke glassware and dishes in Los Alamos, cracked the walls of older adobe buildings, knocked down telephone wires, and destroyed an oil tank at the Carioga oil fields a few miles from town. One of the more interesting effects of these earthquakes was the transformation of Los Alamos Creek, also called San Antonio Creek, from a dry creek bed to a flowing river deep and 18, well, I can't see the number, but so many feet deep and 18 feet wide. Some of the earthquakes were said to be preceded by rumbling sounds, likened to the sound of 1,000 cannon. This series of earthquakes unnerved the residents of Los Alamos, with the worst still to come. The quakes continued with a large one at 5:30 p.m. Monday the 28th that broke. I can't see the word. It's hidden behind a big bar on this page.
I'll get it here. Hold on a second. I copied it and now I'm pasting it.
Yeah.
Right. One of the most interesting effects of these earthquakes was the transformation of Los Alamos Creek, also called San Antonio Creek, from the dry creek bed of the flowing river to 2 feet deep and 18-foot wide. Some of the earthquakes were said to be preceded by rumbling sounds likened to the sound of 1,000 cannons. This series of earthquakes unnerved the residents of Los Alamos, with the worst still to come. The quake continued with a large one at 5:30 p.m. Monday the 28th, which destroyed one of the adobe buildings. More earthquakes were felt until morning of the 31st at 1:20 a.m. when the biggest earthquake struck. People rushed into the street in their night clothes, many of them spending the rest of the night out there camped in the yards. Numerous chimneys were destroyed, and merchandise in the stores and the saloons were thrown to the floor. Some residents were thrown from their beds, trees were uprooted, and landslides occurred in the surrounding hills. Based on the rumor that the president of the University of California had recommended to residents that they leave the area, approximately 60 of the townspeople, 500 citizens.
6 kilometers east-southeast of Sola, Vanuatu, class, moderate, magnitude, 5.0, depth, 10 kilometers.
It's a 5.
Wow.
Only to return sheepishly a few days later. Earthquakes continued to be felt till late December 13 that year. So, yeah, that happened.
Yep. So that's pretty interesting. So
that's a 5, everybody. That's what a 5 looks like right there, that sail. It wasn't long, and so it was a short sail, but it was really dark. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to it here. Share this at Stab. All right. We're back to it. All right, buddy.
So when I found out about that one, I said, well, I'm going to go back and look at the year 1902. See what
Oh, no. Put the link in there. Did you do that already? Planet Vampy's in the house.
Nice.
Yeah, I just got to bring it up. If it'll let me.
Oh, it'll let you. Just got to figure out how to do it. Use a regular mouse for your laptop, dude. Using that mice that's already connected to a laptop doesn't work very well. So plug one in.
Yeah, well, I'm using the desktop now, so it's got a mouse. But
Yeah, a regular desktop mouse, like USB or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, it just doesn't want to copy sometimes. For
Yeah.
some reason.
Copy the blue. Make it blue and then right click or Control V, Control C.
Oh,
I
tried to copy it.
think Vampy, she's on her way to work. Or no, yeah, she's on her way to work. She just woke up.
Yeah,
There we go. Share this instead. All right, 1902. What month we looking at, buddy?
Oh, what was this one in? January, I think. Or no, July.
All right, so we'll go. You want to go back one first? That way, it's not so confusing. Maybe 1901. All right.
Well, I'd rather do 1902 first. So, and then go back.
All right. Let's get to where the earthquake was, and where the earthquake is in July. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh my God, I can already see some stuff.
That's the usual pattern. Sometimes you don't even have to go back.
Yeah, I know. I can see it. Yeah. What month, dude?
July. Start with July and go backwards.
Well, I don't see an earthquake in U.S. in July. 1902.
I mean, was it July or January? I gotta look and see.
Oh, Central California.
Yeah.
All right, that was in March. All right, so that same month, Tarapaca, Chile popped.
Yeah.
That's way south. All right. Prior to March, in February, the DR north had a 6.9 north of the DR. Hokkaido again, 6.7. And okay, nothing there. In January, Japan, Honshu, Hokkaido, 6.9s. Guatemala had a 6.3. Is Hokkaido again, 6.5. Mexico, Guerrero had a 7.0. And the Fox Islands, Alaska had a 7.0. Didn't we just have a pretty strong 7 up in the Fox Islands here?
Yeah.
Was it a 6?
6 something.
All right. Well,
like
that.
it's 6.5.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go back to 1901.
Now we go back to 1901, but you're seeing it like the same pattern again.
Yeah, no doubt.
Just in like
December, we have Mexico 7.1, the Gulf of Mexico. Alaska 7.0, Fox Islands another 7.1. All right, so it's coming backwards from out of down up there, and then also coming up the coast. Going back. So November, nothing. Honduras in September, 7.1.
See, so it's the same thing again.
Yeah. Japan, Honshu again, 6.8. What the frack?
There's some big ones over there.
7.5 Honshu. Man, these poor people. Honshu again, 7.2.
Shaking.
Because see, if you think about it, it's the Pacific Plate is going
Correct.
moving like crazy the whole way around. That's what it's doing.
Yeah, the Ryukyu Island. So that's just south of Honshu. 7.2, 7.0, 6.5. And that's in June.
So there has to be a crap load of movement for the whole Pacific Plate before it helps.
Right. I'm not seeing anything in the in North America or in Canada,
No.
we continue. We got the Gulf of Mexico in
Remember,
March.
this is 1902, so I'm not even sure what year they had,
Parkfield had a 6.4.
like in Iceland and stuff.
Yeah. So prior to all the other Honshu stuff, I'm all the way back into March. And so March, California had a 6.4 at Parkfield. The Gulf of Mexico had a 6.9. And freaking Hokkaido, Ecuador. So that in 1901, it starts off with Ecuador popping at a 7.2. Hokkaido, which is the northern island, like the hatchet of Japan, popped at a 6.8. British Columbia had a 7.1. So both sides of California, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Going-
finally we see something in Canada go off before
Right.
California too.
Right. Then Central California at Parkfield pops at a 6.4. So we have Canada, British Columbia. Now, they don't tell me where that 1901 happened, but it's BC. So it's probably Haida Gwaii
I would imagine.
or Vancouver Island, one of the two.
Or in between Haida Gwaii and
Yeah.
Vancouver Island.
So more than likely that's happened. So then we see, again, Parkfield pop at a 6.4 and the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of California, a 6.9. They don't say exactly where. That could be in the Delta. That can be in the central part of it, or it can be down in the southern part of it. We just don't know. And then in April, nothing happens. In May, the Kuril Islands, so that's on the other side. Then in June, Japan starts popping. So the Kuril is a 6.6 the month before. Japan starts going Honshu 7, Ryukyu Islands 7.2, 6.5. And then Honshu again 7.2 the next month in August. Honshu has 7.5. Oh my God.
God,
And
they
it's
were moving.
just incredible. September, Japan Honshu was 6.8. And then in October, Nicaragua pops with a 7.1. So it waited a couple of months to go from the Gulf of California down to Honduras, Nicaragua border region. And there was a tsunami to that too, by the way. So November, nothing happened. December, the Gulf of California popped again at a 7.1. So there's two strong Gulf of Californians. Alaska, Fox Islands and Southern Alaska both pop at the 7s. A tsunami was reported in the Fox Islands. And then we go into 1902. In January, Fox Islands again a 7. Mexico, Guerrero. I would say Guerrero is where the last 7 happened in Mexico. What the frack? I forget what it's called. And anyway, Hokkaido pops with a 6.5. On the other side of the plate. Then back to this plate, Guatemala 6.3. And then all hell breaks loose in Japan again. 6.9, 6.9, 6.6. And then at Hokkaido again the next month. February, right? Yeah, February. 6.7. Then Central California, that's when we're looking at a 6.8 happened in March. So what led up to it was Alaska banging off, Japan banging
Multiple 7. Yep.
Baja California banging off. What's missing is Peru.
Yeah.
So
So
The
this
big
time,
southern pressure, right?
yeah, this time it was more like Central America coming up and stuff from the north.
Yeah, from Alaska. All right. So trying to, take a not a short view, but a bigger picture, like come back and kind of look at what's happening in the Santa Barbara Channel area of where these quakes happen. If there is evidence of movement that led up to the Santa Barbara quake, we can almost say for certain that when Canada and Baja pop, because Baja popped in the other one too, Central America pops, we have to look up north. Ecuador, Peruvian, Nevada del Ruiz, Colombia. And then we have the 1927 vision as well, which came 30 years later, which spoke about the exact things that we're describing now.
Yeah. Well, the same area got hit again in 1915, which we're going to look at next.
Okay. 1915.
Yeah, I've got the thing I'm going to put it in.
I already have it up in the wiki. I have it.
Yeah, but we got to read up the quake first.
Yes, I know, but go right ahead.
You're one step ahead of me already.
Wait, that's the Alamos 1902 one.
No, because see, it says 13 years later.
Hold on here. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste this into my thing because I can't read that with that crap in the middle. Yeah. His image that he's got there was too small when he posted it. So when anyway, don't worry about it. If I was at a different size screen, it would show better. I
like how it starts out.
Based on a rumor, is that where it starts? Yeah. No, triskaidekaphobics, whatever that.
Yeah, that means people that are afraid of the 13.
Oh, okay. If you're afraid of 13, be aware. 13 years after the 1902 quake, in January 11th in 1915, Los Alamos was again shaken by a serious earthquake.
So this is 13
dropped out, drop back in.
Yeah, 13 years after the one we just.
13 years after. Professor Carl Beal of Caltech undertook the journey from Pasadena to study the earthquakes. This was not an easy trip at the time. Professor Beal took the train to Lompoc, then went on horseback to Los Alamos, Solvang, and Los Olivos, and Santa Maria. Beal reported the following in October 1915 issue of Bulletin of Seismological Study of America. Some interesting data were obtained in regard to the effect of the earthquake on animals. On some of the ranches not far distant from the Los Alamos, horses in the stables became frightened and snorted. Chickens at the roost squawked and made great commotion, while dogs showed fear and barked. Cats were badly frightened and in a few cases ran out of the house and would not venture inside or eat for several days. The people living in the district that was most seriously shaken were affected in various ways. 2 or 3 women became dizzy and fainted, while practically everybody was frightened, and many people ran from their houses. There have been many light shocks since the largest earthquake, and a few people have become very nervous by their constant reoccurrence. At Zaca Lake, the earthquake is given credit for having started a clock which previously was incapable of running. The swaying motion of the shock started the pendulum swinging, and it is reported the clock was since kept excellent time.
So I don't know if that was broke by the 1902 quake and the 1915 one fixed it, but I don't know if that's true or not. But I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, they just put it up there and it didn't work, or they couldn't get the thing to work. But something was messing with it, right?
Yeah. So now that was at January, but of 1915. But I want us to look at the entire year of 15 first, because there was a lot of stuff going on in 15, and then we'll go back to 14.
All right. So we're gonna look through on January.
Yeah.
All right. So we have the Ryukyu Islands again. Oh, yeah, ding Japan. Right. February. The Ryukyu Islands again, 7.3s. So the other one was a 7.3. That's a 7.3. God bless America. Honshu was 6.8. Hokkaido was 7.2. I don't want to go to Japan.
No.
Here's Brazil with a 6.9 in the Brazilian, jungle. Kuril Islands is 7.8. Wow.
That's the biggest one of the year, isn't it, too?
I'm not sure. Honshu, Japan, 6.7. Imperial Valley, California. Now that's down in the south here. Imperial Valley bust out with a 6.1 and a 6.3. Wow. The 1915 Imperial Valley earthquakes.
More when we do Imperial Fault.
Why would they say the Imperial Valley? Well, 1915 Imperial Valley earthquakes are example of doublet earthquakes. Both events within an hour of each. 6 people were killed and damage was 900,000 in 1915. The depth is unknown. All right, so they called that Imperial Valley along the coast. I thought the Imperial Valley was also in Salton Sea area, down south. But maybe
isn't that the Imperial Fault?
Yeah, down in the south. Yeah, but this one is, not there. If we're talking about the 1915 up there, and just make sure.
So I think it's down there.
Yeah, I just want to. Southern Cal.
That would make sense.
Yeah, it is. It's down in the south. Yeah. So why are we talking about 1915 down there? I got confused here.
So Los Alamos went off before Imperial Valley.
Oh.
See. So we're doing the whole 1915 because other things happened. You'll see.
Well, I didn't see the Los Alamos happen yet.
Yeah, because it was at January 11th, so it was
Was it? All right.
Start of 1915. I just want it because I already know
they didn't have it on this list. They don't have it. That's why.
Yeah, because it wasn't like 6. It was like, I forget what they said, 5.7, 5.8 or something like that.
January. I don't see when they said the size.
Make the big list.
Yeah. I don't see it. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Okay, September. El Salvador, 7.4. Nevada came in with a 6.8.
Yep.
Then the Isuzu Islands again.
And that was the same year that Lassen was erupting.
Yeah, and Puerto Rico, 6.6. And then Honshu again, 6.8. What the hell's with Japan? And then November, Honshu, 7, 6, 7, 7. And then Honshu was 7. What the? Baja California, 710, and it's a Sonoran. That's in the central portion.
Yep.
Somebody's got a microphone that keeps losing. That's probably you, Canuck.
Could be. I don't know.
Yeah. So in December, Japan, Honshu. What the frack?
Don't move to Japan, please.
No. And Honduras, 6.6. That's all 1915. Now you want to go back to 2014?
to 1914, since this one happened in January.
Yeah, we'll start in January. What led up to it? All right.
Yep.
Kyushu, Japan, 6.7. Chile, Bio, Central Chile, 7.6. All right. So Japan and Chile always connected. East coast off the coast, a 6.8. Japan, Honshu. God bless America. March. Honshu, Japan, 7. Chiapas, 7.2. Mexico. So we went from Chile, a 7.6 in January, to March, a 7.2 in Mexico. Panama 6.9 in May. Looking at June, nothing. July, Ryukyu Islands 6.7. August, nada. September, the Kurils a 6.5. There's a Greece one in there. Nothing else in October, I mean. November, Volcano Islands, again, that's like by the Ryukyu, 7.9. Ryukyu Islands, 6.9. Greece was terrible, had a 6.3. Then Peru in December, a 6.7. So that's all 1914.
Wow.
Then the very next month of 1915, that's when it hit.
Began.
Los Alamos. So we have Baja California or Central California in March, 6.8. Guatemala, 6.3 in January. Fox Islands. Oh, this is 1902. I apologize. 1915. What happened in 1914? All right, there we go. Yeah, in 1914, it looked like Japan started off again. Chiapas, 7.2. All right, so that's where it's Bolivia. That's South America, right? Bolivia?
Yeah.
All right, so Bolivia's 7.2. Chiapas is 7.2. In Honshu, of course, doing all that. I'm looking on the east. Panama had a 6.9 in May. And then July, Japan, 6.7. Jamaica, okay, north of Jamaica had a 6. That's a Caribbean. So if the Caribbean is moving again, Panama is part of the Caribbean. I don't know where Angola is. I think that's Africa? No.
Yeah, it's Africa, yeah, Angola.
Is it? Okay. So we got Chiapas, part of the Caribbean. We got Panama, part of the Caribbean, and Jamaica, part of the Caribbean, all popping. So the Caribbean's moving in this one in 1914.
Yeah.
The Kurils are moving. I don't know where Guadalupe is. Where the hell is that?
Guadalupe is one of the
islands.
The Caribbean.
No. It is. It's in the Caribbean. So
yeah.
The Caribbean is banging. The camera just decided it died.
It wanted to go its own way.
There it goes. There it goes. It lost its way. So the Caribbean lost its way too. All right, so we have the Caribbean banging pretty good. Japan's doing its thing. It's constant. And it's funny thing here. You wouldn't think so, but guess what's in the midst of all this? Greece. Yeah, thing's going off again. Get back over here.
Yeah, because Greece, basically, if you go across east-west, it lines up with Mendocino.
I think it's just, there we go.
Which is why Greece usually goes off when California seems to get hit every time.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking up. That it's kind of an anomaly, an outlier, where you throw a grease in there. Maybe it needs a little grease to grease the wheel or something. I don't know. But what we're seeing a similar, like last Saturday, we talked about that, how Greece was, an outlier, but also the Caribbean was, or the Caribbean.
Well,
go ahead.
I wanted to ask the question: how did they know that Greece was a 6.0 if the depth was unknown? If it was a deeper quake, wouldn't it have been stronger?
Well,
I don't know. It's based upon, I guess, what they felt, but if they didn't calculate it from what seismos they had then properly, they wouldn't know what the depth was, which is why they throw the 10-kilometer one on there sometimes now before the
Right, but
the catch-up.
But if it was, let's say, at 200 kilometers deep, I'm not saying that they get them that deep, but if it was, it would actually be a stronger quake than if it was at 10 km deep, getting the same shaking at the surface.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it had to be good enough.
I think what you're saying is on the surface where we all live, you would think that would be more damaging. But I think the depth is inconsequential with the power of a quake. But we're talking about the surface waves, and when it gets to the surface, it does that. So I think that's what you're really trying to get at, right? Not so much the P wave, but the surface waves and how what damages it.
Yeah, you'd get the same amount of shaking if it was a 6.0 at 10 km, let's say, versus like a 6.3 at 200 km. You'd get the same amount of shaking at the surface, roughly.
Well, there'd be more damage the closer it is
to the surface.
Yes.
Yeah, the hypocenter versus the epicenter. Yeah, the hypocenter is where the actual quake started. And I think that has a lot to do with the trend of the earthquake too. So if the break went down further, it wouldn't affect the surface as much. But if the break went up toward the surface, the energy moving in a direction, I think, or the fault structure itself, if it's just a flat structure at 200 depth, it would probably say, okay, this much power. But if it was at 200 depth, but it kind of tilted south or into the planet, then it might be less. But I don't know. But if you're talking like 5 kilometers toward the surface, and that's where the hypocenter was, yeah, astronomically much more powerful from what I've seen. So it is kind of what you're saying. But I think the way the break happens, I think that's part of the equation too.
Right.
Like I said, so.
And I wouldn't disagree with that either. What way is the power of the break going?
Right. So
is it going vertically or horizontally, and which direction is it going?
Right. I think there was a documentary we had on where they were discussing the type of energy when the rocks break in Southern Cal, where they can see the way it breaks, and it would give off a light in their little schematic, and how it broke. So yeah, I think you're correct in that. It just depends on which direction I think the energy is going. You know, if the fault, if it started in the middle of a fault and then went outward, you know, it might dissipate going in both directions. But if it started on an end and was ripping to the left or where there's no fault, it wouldn't go that way, right? So it depends on where it broke on the fault, I would think. And if it's going upward versus going downward, you know, and how long the fault is.
Yeah,
But-
if it's a thrust fault versus
And if it broke
know.
the surface, right?
Yep.
If it broke the surface, there's a whole lot of damage, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, how many times we've seen a 7 or a high 6, and there's just, if it's 500 depth, then it's
hardly anyone feels it.
right. It's not a whole lot of damage, right?
Right. And that's
So-
what I'm getting at. For the deeper it is, for you to feel it at the surface, it's going to require more power to get the same amount of shaking at the surface.
Right. The intensity, I think that's what
Yeah.
you're looking for, right?
Yep.
All right, Canuck, what else you got on the
Yeah. So those quakes were like Los Alamos fault or in that area of the Santa Maria Basin. Well, I wanted to look up a couple quakes that were actually on the Santa Ynez Fault itself. So that's what we're
okay.
doing next. Now, to do that, we got to go back to the map that's in one of those articles that we used back a couple episodes because it shows all the quakes and gives the dates. So I'm
Okay.
gonna put that in again.
You put that back in there, yeah, for me. So we're talking about Los Alamos right here in the middle of our screen.
Okay, now I'm putting this in. And then when you open that, you have to scroll down to the first map that shows all the quakes marked on the faults.
All right.
And then we'll talk about a couple of those.
All right. So you want to looking at the picture.
Yeah,
okay.
it's the first map that shows all the faults.
Yes, I see it. I got it. It's on screen.
Now, I'm only going to talk about a couple of them just because
You have the floor.
forever, right? So I picked,
It's on screen. Hold on.
I
Oh, it is on screen. All right.
Yeah, so I picked the two biggest ones. So magnitude 6.3 in 1821. And when I looked that one up, it was on January 1st, 1821. But once we go into the 1800s, Wikipedia doesn't help us too much. So I have to use my secret weapon. So I'm going to bring that one up next.
All right. We got the AI cam. Yeah, it went crazy on us. Greece also near the super volcano. Yeah, that gal, she's putting some alarming reports on Camp Figry or whatever. So I stopped posting her stuff. Don't need alarmists. Although it is dangerous.
Yep.
So this link that I put in is the Global Historical Earthquake Archive.
Correct.
Yeah. So once I go back into the 1800s or before, I use this one. So
Okay.
it has all the dates over on the side there in the table. So
Yes, sir.
we got to scroll down because it starts at like the year 1000 or whatever.
All
So
right.
we got to scroll all the way down because this quake happened January 1st, 1821. We have to look
All
at
right. All
go down
right.
to 1820 to find out what happened before it. Because this lists all the big ones, like from all over the
Right.
world.
1802, 1810, 1812.
And we want 18.
Dude, there's a lot on 1812s.
Yeah.
1816s, 17, 18, 19. Here's an 1820 off Congo.
Yeah, Congo's the first one, but the next two.
The coast of Guerrero, Mexico.
Yeah, and
And
find out
so-
what it is. To find out what it is, you have to click on it. Then it shows
Mhm.
it on the map, and then you can click more info, and it will tell you what size
Okay.
quake.
More info, and it comes up to say Suarez, Zuniga, 1820 was a 7.8. 1997. Wait a minute. Well, that's a paper, PDF paper.
Yeah, that's where they got the source of it from, right? So it tells that, but they say it was like a 7.9, or so that's a big quake
Yep.
in Guerrero,
Right.
and that was May of 1820.
Yep.
And then the next one it shows is Honduras, which
Point de
was
Sula. Yeah, Point de Sula. So again, that's on the Caribbean plate, moving inland from Guatemala through Honduras. And the more info on that one would tell us 6.5 on this one.
so it was like Central America to Mexico again.
Sure, yeah, and to Chiapas, because Chiapas had that quake as well. There's Costa de Guerrero, which that ended up being a 7.8, and then thought there was one off Chiapas too. Was that it? 1903. Now we're looking at Why are we looking at 1820?
Because that earthquake on Santa Ynez Fault was January 1st, 1821. So I wanted to look at
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
to see what
Previous year.
to see what it was doing. But if you look into 1821 on that same list that we're on now, you'll see that Peru and stuff started going like it in that year. So
All
Right.
so it's like the same pattern again, right? Everything.
Yeah.
And you can see it coming from the south. But see, in the 1800s, the Russians had left Kodiak in 1788, so we have a big gap in Alaska quakes in the 1800s until they
Sure. Yeah, because we were seeing a lot happen in the Rat Islands and Kodiak, Southern Alaska, and we saw in British Columbia, we saw down in the Gulf of Mexico, and then a few across the United States, all culminating there in Southern Cal, coming up from Chiapas, Guerrero. Seems to be a lot of times in Guerrero, Oaxaca, and then Baja California. We've seen a lot of Panamanian. We've seen a lot of Salvadorian, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and I mean, and we're also seeing a lot around the Caribbean plate, and that's where these two quakes, 1820s, these are on the Caribbean plate. So in 1820, there very well could have been something out in the North Atlantic. I'm more inclined to think
have a record of it.
Yeah, I'm more inclined to think the stuff happens out in the North Atlantic and it moves across both the Caribbean and the United States, and subsequently also, South America before California pops. We've seen that over and over and over. And if I recall correctly, Canuck, you kind of coined it first to said, look, before California goes, the East Coast will go. And interesting that you say that, because we've seen evidence of that so far. Montana We seen, what was it? The Carolinas. And we see it also around Ridgecrest. Idaho popped, Utah popped, Wyoming I think was popping as well.
Well, to me, it's logical because North America has to move to run into the Pacific Plate too. So it's not just the Pacific Plate.
Yeah, the chicken leg is working, baby.
Right. You need to have it doing both, which is why it's going crazy over on the opposite side.
Right. It's got to make room for something to happen on the west. I believe that the east or the west has to make room for the east, which we're in the east. The west, it's got to go nuts.
Yeah.
And we just, in reason that we haven't seen anything is because Japan's been super quiet.
Yeah.
And if Japan starts kicking off, and watch out. Let me test that theory. 2019 Ridgecrest. Was anything happening in Japan around then?
Yeah, but not super busy. Because that was when we had the Peru 8. Because you'll find when there's a big
Peruvian
really big quake in the south, in South America, it comes up.
Well,
So,
what year was that quake in Virginia? That 5.9, I think.
Yeah, that was
2000?
2011, the same year as Grimm's Voten had the big eruption. Because when Iceland goes off with big eruptions, you get East Coast bigger quakes.
Well, Ridgecrest, Ridgecrest, July 5th, they call it an 8 now, by the way.
What?
Yeah. On the wiki.
No.
8 kilometers deep, you mean?
No. Yeah, 8 kilometers depth. 7.1. Like, what?
Yeah,
What's
I was like, whoa.
the 6.4 and the 7.1 on.
But we're seeing it in Peru, and we're seeing it Peru in May and March had 2 big quakes, a 7 and an 8.
Yeah.
Prior to Ridgecrest. And I'm not seeing anything about Japan. So the Molucca Sea is the closest.
Yeah, it's different sometimes when there's a really big quake in.
There's an Ecuador 7.5 as well for 2019.
Yeah,
That's
you got
kind of
quite a bit of
interesting.
pressure pushing north then
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I'm going to go ahead and look at 2018 just for shits and giggles. 2018.
Well, 2018 was like the big Alaska.
Alaska had a 7.9. Honduras had a 7.5.
Yeah.
Venezuela had a 7.3.
Yeah, there was
Oaxaca had a 7.2. Peru had a 7.1.
Yeah.
Peru had a 7.1. Alaska had a 7.1.
And if you go back to 2017, there was the 2 big quakes in Mexico, the 8.1 and 7.2. So, like, even if you start going back 2 years, you can see how it all set itself up.
Yeah, 7.1 and an 8.2 in Mexico. Yeah, Pueblo and Chiapas, both are in the south, the southernmost portion of Mexico.
Well, I found it like does this over and over because I've done the year thing on so many historical ones. It's like the same. Like after you see it 500 times, you say, "Oh well."
Yeah, it makes sense, right? You know. So.
And now I want to do one more on Santa Ina's Fault.
Okay, go ahead.
Which is the next biggest one that's back on that.
Oh
map.
shoot! I just closed. Oh, the other map, the original. San Ynez.
Yeah, the next one was a magnitude 6 in 1854. Well, I want us to go on the Global Historical Earthquake Archive.
All right.
54.
Oops, that's the wrong one.
You'll see all sorts of exciting things going on.
1854. All right. Scrolling down. 1600. 1850, 51, 52, several 52s. God, a lot of 52s.
Yeah.
53s, 54. Okay.
Yeah. So just start reading the ones off.
Ilopango. Whoa.
It's wild.
Wow.
I never even looked up the exact date for this one, but I didn't have to because I already knew a bunch of stuff that happened in 1854. So
Mexico had a quake too. Didn't say where. Oh, it's in Oaxaca. More info here. Let me share it. Hey, why isn't this visual? Hold on, I apologize. My screen seems to have died on me. No, it's Gia.
well, the other most notable quakes in 1854 was the Nankai Trough went off at 88s.
I don't know what's going on with it. I think it has a lifespan of only about an hour. We're at 2 hours and the camera just says, I'm done.
It couldn't handle
It peels off.
Had enough of that.
Yeah.
But the other big quake that year was 88s, Nankai Trough
Yamamoto.
in 1854.
Yamato. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting that Japan was going off at 88s the same year that the 6.0 happened on Santa Ynez Fault, which, and all these ones we've looked up, Japan always goes bonkers, pretty much.
Yeah. You almost have to, I mean, it's the farthest place away from North America because you have the Pacific Plate. It's freaking huge. I mean, you can put a lot of North America's into the Pacific Plate before you ever get to Japan. And and the maps that we use don't really put it to scale. But that's wild, dude. In 1854, the Ilopango, you remember we've talked about the volcano, and it's right next to that sucker. Yeah. If that thing were to blow, it's blown before, and wow. It took out the what are the Incas? Or no, not the Incas, the
Aztecs, wasn't it?
Aztecs, yeah, took them out.
Yeah. So once again, see, it's the same thing. It's Mexico, Central America.
Yeah, you have the Caribbean plate, and that pressure moves north. And the idea that, I think, Canuck, when we were discussing it, and you kind of put it in this sense, but I was trying to explain it one way, and you kind of said, yeah, kind of like frozen ice on a lake as it's moving down. You see how it overlaps each other as they run into each other. It's kind of like the plates in the world, how they kind of bounce off each other and do things.
So if it's moving crazy on one side of the plate, whatever it is,
it's got to balance out a little bit.
Catch up on the other side.
And I watch that pretty close for the balance. I don't always see it, but it's not. I mean, just tonight's discussion. How many times was Japan going apeshit?
Quite a few.
I mean, literally apeshit. And we also had Peru. We had all around the Caribbean. We had Alaska. So, and yes, Russia was going off. The Kurils were going off, and other places too. Greece was always in the mix. And I didn't talk about the Vanuatu's and the PNGs because they were going to, and so was all the maritime continent was going. But it's just too much to kind of conceptualize I don't know whose mic that is.
I don't know. Done it a couple times.
Yeah. But I mean, literally, I mean, it's a, there we go. I don't know why it does that. It's going to do it to me again.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I know why. But it's uncanny to see these kinds of repetitive things going on, and to be disassociated by geologists to say it's nothing. By the powers that be, it's nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, and see back on that same map again, there was a magnitude 6.5 in 1926.
Mhm.
So that was the year after the 1925 Santa Barbara quake. And it was
Right.
going over more towards Ventura. So that's like super close together. So I don't know where they're getting this that stuff isn't related. Like we just did a bunch of ones like 1902 to 1915, so that's 13 years apart. Then we did
Well, shoot, there's an 1827 on there too.
Yeah, so I'm not even doing all the ones that it has on this one. Like I see it has a magnitude 5.8 in 1893. Well, that was the year after the 1892 Laguna Salada quake. So see, you could trace this for all these once you have a date.
Yeah,
Now,
it's
I never even looked up 1827, or I never looked up the 1973 one, which is the Point Magoo quake, I think it is.
right.
Or no, yeah. Well, look, there was two in 73, according to that, magnitude 5 and then a magnitude 5.3, all right close together in the same year. So I never even
all offshore too. All these are offshore too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
I never even looked those up to see where they came from, but I imagine it'd be the
major offshores. What do we have? Can't even see where the date on that one is. 1941, 1926, 1925, 1968, 1893, 1973. Yeah, all these are major quakes right there in that Santa Barbara Channel or Santa Barbara Basin. And
so these would all be like the last 200 years.
Correct.
Right.
And it's like, how do we put this in perspective over the larger, over the larger scheme of things and summing it all up? Oh, it's yours. Luke, it was your microphone for some reason. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it slides a little bit. But how do we summarize this? Because we're already 2 hours into this, 2 hours and 8.
Well,
summarize what your thoughts are on all this, and I'll ask Luke the same question.
Well, basically, all these quakes are happening, so somebody recorded them the last 200 years. So I don't know how they can say they're not related, especially when they're all happening like within a few years of each other. Because supposedly all these faults are taking thousands of years or 800 years or whatever for quakes to go off. But yet this is all in 200 years worth, and we have it going off all over the place. So that's what I don't understand about. Because they even have it marked on certain faults or next to certain faults. And so they're showing it, they've all gone off in 200 years. So if they're saying one fault hasn't gone off for 30,000 years or 800 or 1,200, is that really true? Do we really know for sure? So
right,
it might be going off way more than what we think. We're just not paying attention.
yep, exactly.
And the relation to on the other side of the plate?
Well, to me, if it adjusts big on one side, it's going to adjust on the other side at some point.
Mhm.
Like right now, how it's doing, most of our stuff is, say, from
Fiji to PNG right now.
Fiji to PNG, and if you go back to the start of the year, it's basically between Japan and Philippines.
Right.
And
I'm not seeing there's been some activity in Japan, but not a lot. But yeah,
But
that's
we haven't had anything really big. Alaska down through. Well,
I think the Kurils was the last 7, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we haven't had anything really big between Alaska and South America.
and that's current.
Yeah,
So what are your thoughts there, Luke? In our discussion here, just trying to take it all in as you were listening. What stood out to you?
To me, it's interesting to see the patterns that develop. I mean, you can basically always throw Japan in on anything. You know, it's going to be there. It's going to be quaking. But, you know, sometimes you'll see the power coming down from Alaska, and other times you'll see the power coming from South America running up north to put these quakes into play, let's say. And you see Greece going off. It's like you can see the plates just kind of adjusting around, you know, and you might have one area that goes really big, but in other areas, not so much, you know, but it's always I guess, a push and pull game with the plates.
Yeah, you said some buzzwords, push and pull. That's good. I'm going to throw it over to Eden. Eden, what's your thoughts on listening to this evening's rabbit hole? What are your thoughts out there? And his last comment, what if there was underwater chambers in the whole Pacific region up to the coast leading to Yellowstone right now? It's uplifting and the oceans are super hot underwater. Mixed reaction, cause and effect. I'm not sure I understand him. I don't want to go into that conspiratorial thing where we got submarines going from one side to the other, but I'm not sure if that's what he was trying to say.
Well, it's just connections between.
Move to your left there, buddy.
Yeah.
You're not on the camera. There you are.
Just connections between.
He's getting tired. He's fading.
Yeah, stuff offshore and then coming on the land. So like connections between the volcanoes. But if that's all basically the liniment thing, that's really what.
All right. Getting. Well, is there anybody else that has a question or a comment? Give it a second here. He said, yep. So I'm assuming Canuck, when you're out of frame there, go back into a frame. Got to get used to it.
I got to get my chair in the right spot.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. Otherwise, my camera kind of goes, bzzz, takes off. But yeah. What did he say? He said, yep. I guess you said right. All right, then. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Yeah, Timmy sees me. Of course, I've been on the camera on this whole time.
Except when it ran away.
Except for when it went the other way. It might just been following my ghost. I don't know. But yeah, thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the participating in the rabbit hole this evening. This will be the home for the rabbit hole and any other events that we put on. So it will be located here on the Tavern Report. Tavern Report will do other things other than the rabbit hole. Maybe a little collaboration with my brother Luke and some of his stuff. And some of the things that we may pan out down the road. Maybe even some fun stuff with um, Canuck too. If you can never figure out his chair in the angle of the camera there.
And my chair sliding away.
Yeah, mine is too. Backside hurts just terribly. I changed out chairs and I can't stand this one. But obviously the camera is staying with me, so I'm not moving. You know.
It's easier to move the camera than me.
Yeah. I don't want to touch mine. But anyway. Yeah. Thanks everybody. Hit Timmy's desk now. Oh, thank you for the win. But it was fun. Appreciate you. And everybody, you can go back to JSL now.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta give you props, Joe. You're on camera tonight.
Right now.
So next time we'll go south again, and
Yeah.
and then come back up the other way, the other side.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. Yeah. All right, everybody.